Haunted House Creeper by Spooky_Coffee. I feel bad that I'm just now posting this event after a few months. I think it is me overreacting, but it genuinely bothered me. Anyways, let's dig into this disturbing encounter. This past October, I got the lucky chance to finally work at a haunted house. It's been my dream job since a really young age, and a friend of mine hooked up me with the gig. Maddie had worked at this haunted house the previous year, and told me how fun and thrilling it was. I agreed to work with her, and the job was overall amazing. I played Regan from The Exorcist, and my fellow coworkers said I was one of the best acts in the attraction. My bosses were also pretty proud, and even posted a video of me on their Facebook. The job was just a pure delight, except for one of the workers. Besides getting home around 1 in the morning, and losing my voice due to constantly screaming, this creepy coworker almost soured the whole experience for me. Daniel was, I'd say, in his mid-40s. He worked in the haunted house as a butcher. He was a tall and brawny guy, definitely far more intimidating than my other coworkers who were teenagers. I was 17, so was Maddie. He's bald and had a few tattoos on his arms. Any conversation he carried, he was just visibly awkward. I'm not saying that in a judging manner, it was just visible that something was a bit off about this guy. Daniel first started to talk to me after my first shift. He was complimenting my performance and how loud I could scream, which I didn't find odd at all. All the other workers were complimenting me as well, so him mentioning it was not out of the ordinary. I thanked him, we exchanged names, shook hands, and that was the end of that shift. Every shift that followed the first, Daniel would always compliment me, shake my hand, and ask me for my name again, even though I already told him a handful of times. Then his creepiness only increases. One night, while all the workers are lining up to clock out and leave, Daniel goes on a huge rant to Maddie and me about his personal life. He mentions how much he hates his ex-wife, and would love to beat her up because of how she abused him. Daniel also said he is divorcing his current wife, whom he says that he still loves. I was just baffled that he, out of the blue, decided to rant about personal issues to 2 teenagers. But I brushed it off, clocked out, and Maddie and I drove home. On the ride home, I told Maddie how odd Daniel is, and she agreed, but argued that he's nice. So keep in mind that Maddie knew I was not particularly fond of Daniel, and wanted nothing to do with him. A few shifts later, the worst incident involving Daniel occurred. The haunted house was closed and all the workers were scrubbing off their grotesque makeup, and changing back into their normal clothes. I was in the break room washing off my makeup with about 6 other people in the room, including Maddie and Daniel. Out of nowhere, Daniel just blurts out, "Man, my ride just cancelled on me." I could obviously tell this was one of those statements where he is fishing for attention. I kept my trap shut and continued washing off my nasty makeup. Maddie, being an overly generous and sometimes air-headed teen, quickly offers to give him a ride. The very moment those words fell out of her mouth, my heart sunk to the pit of my stomach. Maddie was also taking me home that night since we alternated who drove to work. My eyes quickly shifted to Maddie, who somehow didn't see the strangeness in 2 teenagers, giving a 45-year-old man a ride home at midnight. Daniel happily said, "Thank you so much," and detailed where he lives. Knowing I couldn't just blurt out no in front of Daniel, I gave Maddie a stern look and left the room. Bewildered, I walked out of the room to change out of my sweat-stained dress and into my normal clothes with the notion that I am about to endure an awkward and creepy car ride with Daniel. I was livid at Maddie. She knew that Daniel frightened me, and never thought to think before she blurted out her offer. I stayed back in the dressing room, too scared to hop in the car with Daniel. But I knew I couldn't stay there forever, and so I built up some courage and returned to the break room where Maddie is. Daniel was no longer in the room, but Maddie was as well as a few other workers. She informed me that another worker, a very sweet woman who is about Daniel's age, was going to take Daniel home instead of us. A huge wave of relief washed over me. On our way home, I asked Maddie why the plans changed. What she said further corrected my suspicion. While I was changing out of my exorcist costume, our boss, Joey, pulled Maddie into his office to say that she shouldn't take Daniel home. He elaborates how Daniel is bipolar and can get angry easily, and violent, and it's not safe for 2 teenage girls to be alone with him in the middle of the night. That's when the older woman offered to take Daniel home. This incident infuriates me in 2 ways. 1. Why would a grown man think it's okay for two teenage girls to take him home? And 2. How could Maddie be so blind and lack vital common sense to know this is not a good idea? Thankfully, that moment passed, but there's still one more incident that remains. Ever since the last scenario, Daniel stopped talking to me. If I had to guess, Joey probably told him to stop. About the second to last night at working at the haunted house, Daniel got hurt. While everyone is getting ready and putting makeup on, Daniel enters the break room with a gnarly gash on the top of his head that is spurting out pools of blood. We all thought it was really good makeup at first, but Daniel claims that he was messing with a garage door inside the attraction, and it fell down on his head. For such a deep cut that was bleeding profusely, Daniel seemed way too nonchalant about, and insisted that he didn't need medical attention. He sat in the break room for a while, with the wound just pouring blood while we all applied our makeup. A part of me feels like wounding himself was intentional, but I could be wrong. He just seemed way too chill about it. And that's that. It's not a horrifying encounter, but it was enough to really shake me any time I saw him. Thankfully, the room I was positioned in was no one near his, so he was never in my room alone with me. Update: I was debating if I wanted to include this or not, but I want some kind of outlet to get it off my chest. Just a few days ago I was informed of something that really made my heart stop. Apparently, about a month after the haunted house closed, Daniel killed himself. I wasn't told how, not that that's any of my business, but that news came out of nowhere. I pray his family is doing all right and that Daniel is no longer suffering. The Cult at Target. By Spooky_Coffee. This incident just occurred a few hours ago, and it is still making my head spin. Forgive me if it seems lengthy, but an awful lot was said. My mother, sister, and I, female and 18 years old, were shopping in our local Target. As we stroll around, I recognize a girl named Stacy, also 18 years old, that I used to go to school with. For reference, I dropped out of high school my senior year, so I haven't been in my old high school or seen anyone from there for about a year now. I simply glance at her and keep on moving, doubting that she recognized me because I haven't been in school for a year. A few minutes later, I'm on the complete opposite side of the store, when I see this girl again. Like last time, our eyes awkwardly met, and I tried to just walk past her, but this time she actually said something. "Hey, didn't we play tennis together?" Stacy spoke with wide eyes and a painfully large smile. There was a girl standing next to her, but I didn't recognize her. I simply replied a yes in response. I was never friends with her in school. In fact, I never talked to her or even liked her. That's when she introduced herself as if I completely forgot who she was. She goes on to question if I still went to high school, in which I explained that I graduated early with online classes. The conversation started out normal. I thought it was simply us catching up due to the fact that I had been absent from school. I kept wanting to cut the conversation short, but Stacy kept prodding about what was I doing now, am I in college? And what was college like? Harmless questions. In fact, I didn't mind answering her questions. Then the conversation took an unexpected twist. Stacy somehow weaseled the conversation into one about God and Christianity. For reference, I do consider myself a Christian, but not one of those hardcore ones who are constantly spewing Bible quotes at strangers. She asks if I attend church, to which I responded with yes. Her eyes became even wider and her smile even bigger. Her whole mantra of God sounded like this. Back in my high school days, I was always partying and being so happy. But that was all fake, and no one knew that I was actually pretty sad. That's when I found this church that showed me God's way and His undying love. He accepted me and He'll accept you too. Now I am always happy, for I have God on my side. And at this church, God truly appears before your very eyes. He cured me of all my physical and mental ailments, like when I messed up my knee in tennis. The whole time Stacy spoke there was just a robotic tone about it, as if Stacy's words were memorized, practiced, and rehearsed. There was almost no genuine emotion in her, just wide eyes and a never-failing smile. Then her friend, Ashley, late teens or early 20s, began her speech. Keep in mind, my mother and sister are just an aisle away, waiting on me. Ashley's speech went like this: for a while in life, I suffered with depression and suicide. I was always faking to be happy, until I found this church. This church truly opened my eyes and heart. I no longer feel dead inside. This is when she hinted that maybe I feel dead inside too, and the only way to recover from it is to look to God. Ashley also used the word zombie to describe this dead feeling, and that's when I began to really think that there's something wrong with these girls. Ashley continued on saying, I don't think it is a mere coincidence that we ran into you. God led me to you. He wanted me to reveal to you the way. God put a vision in my mind of you opening a present, and that present is our Lord and Savior. She kept on ranting how this is destiny that we met, and that God put Stacy and Ashley in my path to reveal himself to me. When Ashley mentioned depression and suicide, I could not help but to believe her for a slight second. I had been struggling with depression for years, but kept it quiet. And with me being a believer of God, I was almost fooled into thinking that this is a sign from God telling me to finally open up and get help. But when Ashley began to ramble about her church, that foolish hope I had dissipated quickly. Then the two moved the conversation onto their church. They kept stating that it was not a normal church, and that God himself, in flesh and blood, came to them at the church. They informed me that God came to them to heal them of misery and grief. Ashley then pulled out a business card which had the church's email, a Bible quote, and her personal phone number. Before the anticipated departure, they kept saying how cool I am and that they are glad that they met me. Then we finally parted ways. I remember my legs being extremely weak when I walked away. That's when in mind it clicked, are they a part of some cult? Their mannerism and behavior seemed too scripted to be real. That's when my sister found me and answered my suspicions. Apparently, before I had to endure that 10-minute chat with Stacy and Ashley, my sister overheard the girls were having the same conversation with another girl on the opposite side of the store. So this was all scripted, and it was their way of luring and persuading strangers to join their church. I realize now how they do it too. To reel me into their discussion, they discussed about my absence from school and experience in college. To reel in the other girl they talked with, they started by complimenting her outfit and inquiring about her artistic hobbies. I wonder how many people they ended up talking to, and if they were just walking around the store hoping to find easy targets to talk to. I have so many questions, and that's what bothers me the most about this. And being the somewhat religious person that I am, their talk of God unnerved me. It is sort of humorous to think of now, simply because I think crazy God lovers are comical, but I'm still bewildered. If you have any information about how cults operate and how they coax people into joining them, please let me know. Does this incident sound like cult members trying to spread their message, or harmless teenage girls simply spreading the love of God? If you have any other questions about what occurred in my interaction with them, please ask. Also, it's possible that I will see Stacy again because she is attending my college next semester. Although Stacy and Ashley seemed harmless and just overly excited about God, I honestly hope that we never meet again. Thanks for listening. The link to the Reddit post are in the description below. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.